Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the original Loretta Brown Show radio to open the heart, heal the soul, awaken the consciousness. Good morning, Mr. Benny Mathers.
There, trying to scare people online. They
I
see
love
they're
that.
like, what's going on
I
there?
love
Like,
that. What's going on? Hello. What's happening?
jumping out
Yep.
at you. 3D.
3D. Yeah.
Ooh,
Well,
imagine us, our show in 3D.
Oh, I love this idea.
Uh-huh.
How do we make that happen?
I don't know. I'm not.
I don't either.
I work in radio. I'm not a TV guy, so I'm barely getting along with Zoom here.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how was February?
February's good. Yeah, we're moving on to March. It's I haven't got my green on, although I wore it yesterday, so I'm preparing for that. We talked right before we went on the air. Our roof is holding. We got a new roof in January. The girlfriend and I on our house. We're good that way. We're keeping the rain away, or gloomy days, however you want to call it. All right. And no, everything's we're looking forward to it, I guess. Yeah,
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A new roof is a good thing. It's
right.
Good thing.
Because you have to have good roofs with what we're going to talk about today, right?
Yes.
Oh, Benny, you're so good.
Right. You're so clever.
There you go.
You are so clever.
Pat on the back there. Here we go.
Pat on the back. And Sunday, I want to remind people it's time to change your clocks.
No! You reminded me.
I'm a real downer this morning. I'm sorry. It's spring forward. Somebody posted something the other day on falling back, and I'm like, no, it's spring.
That's the other end of
That's it.
Who said that?
Somebody actually posted it.
Call them out. Jeez. There's spring forward, fall back. How can you forget that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yep. So that's the way it is. You got to move your clock forward an hour. And I part of me thought we were done with that, but we're not done with it. So we still
there's actually a bill in the Senate, I believe, in Washington State that we're trying to make it more uniformed. It still hasn't passed, obviously, but it seems like the rumblings of more and more people want it not to change, to stay the same. And you know what? I kind of agree with it.
Yeah, I do. I think we end up with jet lag or something.
I mean,
is it clock lag?
Yeah, exactly. Clock lag, time lag, time lag, however you want it. But
time lag.
I don't think an hour is that big of a deal, really. I think if it was like 2 or more, then that's kind of like messing with your internals. But I mean, I've been doing radio for over 20 years. I've been getting up at 3 a.m. for over 20 years. Before that, I did evening shifts at the mighty Blockbuster Video back in the day. So like, you can adjust yourself, eventually. So I don't really think it would be a big deal if we did it.
Yeah.
Just stay the same.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
That shirt's got to be worth something.
No. It's a reprint. It's a throw. It's a copy of a throwback. Yes. I wish I'd kept all my old stuff, but nah. I have actually a name badge somewhere from my old Blockbuster Video days.
So. Yeah, those are probably collectibles at some point. We didn't know it at the time, right?
Yeah, there was there's no longer a Blockbuster in business except for just one left. It's in Bend, Oregon, and they're no longer like a company. So the store manager actually bought the rights from Blockbuster and now does it all on their own. And they don't get any vendors or anything. They have to physically go out and buy their own copies of items so they can re-rent it back to the public and stuff like that.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So if you're in Oregon, folks, swing by Bend, Oregon and check it out.
Yeah.
It's the last one. It's the last one.
Yeah, that'd be worth going just to see it, I think.
I did a few years ago. It was really cool. Brought back a lot of crazy memories too, but like I didn't want to like jump behind the register and start checking people out because I could have.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Be kind, rewind.
Yeah. Be kind, rewind. Yeah.
Right there, it says, be kind, rewind, right there.
Oh my goodness. Those are good memories. Yeah, those are good memories. Yeah, life has changed a lot. Now there's so much, that you can stream. It takes me so long to figure out what to watch that I don't watch anything.
Well, the one side that I know is people still like, and we'll move on with our show. Sorry for the delay, but like, I still think a lot of people enjoy going to the stores, on those nights and finding something for the family and all coming together and rather than just like point and click and go. In addition, it's a little cheaper still, I'm not going against our, digital ways or internets and all that other fun stuff. But it can be pretty pricey these days and people just want to kind of scale back a little bit and our phones carry everything too. So
yeah, they carry everything. Yeah. But you're planting seeds for when I bring my guest on, because you're talking about my guest today, we'll bring her in a couple of minutes, has written a book called Build Your Village.
Yeah.
And that really ties into it because, the things that we did as families.
Yeah.
Because I remember doing that. I'd take my kids and we'd go and find movies, and it was fun.
Yeah, especially in Seattle, right? When it was raining every time on Fridays and Saturdays. Oh, man, I was busy.
Yeah.
So busy.
I bet you were. Yeah, those are good times. Yeah. Well, let's jump into the show.
Okay.
Bye. And bye. No, stick around. No, don't go too far, Betty. I won't. I can't do this without you, Anyway, I am Loretta Brown, and I'm the owner of Reiki Oasis, located right here in the greater Seattle area for honestly almost 30 years. And like I said, remember to turn your clocks forward on Sunday. And then I have an Egypt trip happening. I do take people on sacred trips, and it will be September 30 to October 14th with a 5-day extension to Petra, Jordan. If you want to go to Egypt and experience it in a small, sacred, intimate group, we have a great time. Send an email to reikioasis@gmail.com and just ask about the information. I'll send you the itinerary. I do have discovery Zoom calls to talk about it so that you can get all the information and decide if it is right for you, which I hope it is. And then I'm going to just kind of go through very quickly the month of March astrologically, because this is a very big month. This is a month that's so potent, it's practically rewriting our reality. We're talking Venus and Mercury retrogrades, a reality shifting eclipse corridor, the March equinox, Neptune's once in 14-year leap into Aries, and add to that Mercury igniting the 0 Aries point 5 times, and you got a month of quantum leaps, fated events, and soul level awakenings. This month is humanity's chance to realign our inner compasses and step boldly into a new paradigm. We started the month off with Venus retrograde at 10 degrees Aries, sliding back to 24-degree Pisces by the month's end. This isn't just a cosmic pause, it's a heart and soul reset. Venus is asking us, what do you truly value? It's echoing cycles from 2017 and 2009. So you can think back what was happening at that time. So this retrograde stirs shifts in priorities and relationships. Reflect on your inner fire. What's worth fighting for? I sometimes say to people, is that really the hill you want to die on? Right? So think about it. On March 3rd, Mercury entered Aries, hitting the 0 Aries point, the alpha point of the zodiac, awakening the alpha. This is the first of 5 activations of that Aries 0 point this month. And it's very electrical. This sort of stuff, fresh off the omega point at 29 degrees Pisces. Mercury bridges the end of one cycle and the spark of a new mission. So check your inner compass. The path is lighting up. By March 12th, the sun is going to meet or conjunct Saturn at 20 degrees Pisces, giving us all a reality check. Are you grounded in your dreams? Are you drifting around in illusion? Are you trying to escape the planet? This is a moment to face facts and build something lasting. Think of it as the universe handing you a blueprint for the month ahead. On March 14th, the eclipse corridor opens with a full moon total lunar eclipse at 23 degrees Virgo. This is a south node eclipse, tightly opposing Saturn and trining Uranus. It's a deep cleanse. It's resolving old patterns with surgical precision. It's very intense and outcome driven and soul shaking. It's a cosmic spring cleaning. You know that song, I'm all shook up, That's what it is. And a day later, on March 15th, Mercury goes retrograde at 9 degrees Aries, right next to Venus's retrograde point. This isn't chaos, I'm letting you know. It's a chance to refine your voice. On March 19th, the sun conjuncts Neptune and the North Node at 29 degrees Pisces, a celestial trifecta of purpose, dreams, and destiny. And on March 20th, the sun crosses into Aries for the March equinox, hitting 0 Aries again. This new astrological year is a quantum launch pad, and it's going to project us forward. March 27th through 29th, Venus and Mercury hit 0 Aries again and again. So we're having that hammering on that 0 point of Aries. And then on March 29th, a new moon partial solar eclipse at 9 degrees Aries. And finally, on March 30th, Neptune enters Aries at 0 degrees. And just to bring it all into perspective, because that was a lot of astrological stuff and your heads are spinning and your eyes are rattling. This month is bringing in a new era. The 5-0 Aries activations are happening. A new spiritual paradigm is beginning. And it is absolutely the beginning of something new. I think that, and I'll be giving more detailed information about that each week, but I wanted to kind of lay that out. Somebody said to me yesterday, she basically said, I've been listening to all these astrologers and these tarot card readers, Loretta. They keep saying that March is supposed to be like nice and blah, blah. And she goes, my life feels like it's turned upside down. And I said, I'm not quite sure who you're listening to. March Madness is here. March is marching forward. And there is a part of us, that loves to evolve and grow. And then there's that part of us that resists it with all of its might. So I can't think of a better day with all that rattling around in the skies to have Florence Ann Romano on my show. She's going to talk to us about how to build a village. I think we need a village to just get through March, let alone the rest of the year. Many of you have heard the saying, it takes a village, but how do we find our village and what does it look like? Florence Ann Romano is a personal growth strategist, an acclaimed author, a philanthropist, and a dynamic businesswoman. Her latest book, Build Your Village, a guide to finding joy and community in every stage of life, offers a heartfelt guide to cultivating supporting networks that alleviate the overwhelm of life and modern parenting. With over 15 years as the Windy City nanny, Florence Ann brings unparalleled insight into childcare and family support, having appeared on over 500 media outlets, including ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox affiliates, and the Jenny McCarthy Show, and now the original Loretta Brown Show. She serves as a director on the foundation board of Lurie Children's Hospital, a board member of Female Strong, and a founding member of Sesame Street's Leadership Council. She is passionate about proving that it takes a village and that it's more than a saying. Welcome to the show, Florence Ann Romano.
Oh my goodness, how fun to have that sound effect.
What are you talking about? This is studio audience here. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh, Betty, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm not worthy. Thank you for having me, Loretta. I'm thrilled to be here. And I loved that conversation about Blockbuster because I was like, I used to do that. That's what we used to do too. After, that Friday would come and you'd walk into Blockbuster and that was just like, that was everything. That was oxygen back then. So, it's funny to see how things have changed.
Yeah, it was. And it was great to choose the movies. It was really fun.
When it wasn't there, though, that was scorched earth.
It was pandemonium.
I know. And then, Benny, you're trying to call another Blockbuster close by.
Oh, man, you don't even know.
I know.
Go check the Dropbox again. I just did 30 seconds ago. Check it again.
So true.
Oh, yeah.
The kids will not know the pain of that.
They won't.
They will not understand. Everything's on demand now.
Yeah, everything is on demand now. So, let's just kind of dive in right there. There's so many places that we could talk, but that did bring people together. And nowadays with all the on-demand stuff, everybody's at home, everybody's on. Talk about the effects of that on us. And then you know how to do it, Florence. Segue into building a village.
Sure. Well, the proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. It's wonderful. It's true. But I always thought that it excluded a lot of people, because what if you don't have children? Does that mean you don't deserve to find your people, or you don't deserve to have a village? Well, of course you do. You're worthy of that. So I wanted to chop that in half and just say it takes a village, period, no matter how you design your life. And as COVID, just dropped upon our world, globally the way that it did, the one thing I looked at was, gosh, we all know what it feels like on this global level to lose your support system. And how often can you say that, Loretta, that you know what it feels like on that global level to experience that together? And what you were talking about, your astrology update, you wonder, how the universe kind of transpires all of that to kind of come to be. But one thing I did take away from that was, as you lost your village and you tried to figure out how to rebuild that once the time came where you were able to do that, where you were not in isolation anymore, I found that people not only didn't know how to build their village, they kind of lost that skill for some reason. Not only did they not know how to do that, but the more important and the scarier part of that was they really didn't want to find their village again. They really didn't want to connect again. So then it turned into this friendship recession in our country, this loneliness epidemic that we have. And people keep wondering, why do we have this? Why isn't this correcting? Well, the truth is, you are the answer to this question. I can give you the roadmap to this village, which is what I hope my book, Build Your Village, does. But at the same time, I can't make you get in the car and drive there. So yeah, there it is, Loretta, Build Your Village. So it's about the friendship recession in our country today and the disconnect people feel, and teaching people that we are meant for people and we are meant to do this life together. And how you build that village, how you build that community of choice, that looks different for everyone, but it's important that everyone realizes that they deserve it.
That's so to the point. I have noticed, especially in the work that I do with people, that when COVID hit, everybody went home, everybody shut their doors, and it has been challenging to get people back out. Like a lot of things up here in the Seattle area, you can have anything delivered to your home very quickly, right?
Same in Chicago here. Yeah, same thing.
And everybody got used to wearing, yoga pants and bunny slippers, right? Comb your hair and just get on Zoom, right?
Right.
Yeah. And even a lot of people working from home. Right. Yeah.
And
so go ahead.
Also made it more difficult, I think, for people too, Loretta, that maybe are shyer, or they're maybe more wallflower, and just that naturally is their personality or their reflex. Retreating into that tortoise shell even more, it's hard to coax you back out of that. And if you were working on that skill, you had an excuse for why you were able to retreat. And so, I think looking at all the different scenarios that exist for people on why it was difficult to connect again or find the motivation to do so, that looks different depending on your personality, your background, your environment. It all comes down to a lot of different variables.
Yeah, I like what you said, coax them back out. And they're like, why? No, don't want to go out there. That's bad out there, right? Good in here.
Yes, exactly. It's easier. It's easier that way. But the problem with that is that loneliness that comes over you. That's hard to ignore. And if you're not willing to do something different to change that, then you are going to continue repeating that cycle. Your mental health, your emotional health is all going to deteriorate because of that. So I'm asking people to do a lot of honest work here, a lot of vulnerable work, and it's going to take courage. And sometimes that courage is not comfortable.
Yeah. I was thinking when you were talking that, we're talking to everybody listening, really, whether you have kids or you don't have kids. But I was also thinking to myself, like a lot of my clients were talking about how their world has shrunk as they were working from home, and then their kids are homeschooling, and everybody's kind of on top of each other, and their homes are not really built for, two home offices and a school, and everybody's kind of fighting, and cabin fever, and
Right.
yeah, there's a lot you could say there, I can tell. Yeah.
There
Yeah.
is, and that was,
Mhm.
gosh, such a difficult time for families, especially when, uh, again, from the childcare perspective, you didn't have your nanny or you didn't have daycare anymore, and you didn't have maybe your in-laws or your parents or the babysitter there to help you. And here you are trying to work, but also trying to be a teacher and making sure your children are getting their work done and you're getting your work done. And it was not survivable. It was, I mean, we survived it, but it wasn't sustainable, certainly. But I think also the emotional consequences of that,
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
continue to see that showing up in a lot of different places in our lives.
Yeah, and as people are going back to the workplaces now, because that's happening up here as well as I think all
Yeah,
over, like
yeah.
go back to the office. Um, but it also, like, wow, I'm sorry, it's just there's so much to this village idea. You as a nanny for 15 years, I think, and it's been a while since you were a nanny, I think.
Yes.
But that, being able to see how that worked with a nanny as part of the family. How
Mhm.
many homes do you think, how many people actually have nannies or childcare helpers?
Well, the statistic is over 63, 64% of families in America today have childcare in some sort of way. So I always say it's not a trend, it is part of our culture
Yeah.
now. And I'm happy to see that. But certainly there's an expense that comes along with that. But also the heartening piece of that is that we aren't meant to do this by ourselves. And it's okay to ask for help.
Oh,
You need
yeah.
to ask for help. Whenever I go to a baby shower, Loretta, and they give you those little cards, your right
Yeah.
advice for the
Yeah.
mom to
Yeah.
be, I always write, ask for help. That's and that's just the truth. And that should be the case for, I think, all of us in life, whether or not you're a parent, you should be asking for help. But asking for help tends to be very difficult for people because when we do that, we are allowing again that vulnerability to set in, but we're also perhaps talking to ourselves in a really unkind way where we say, I'm not good enough. I can't do it. I'm so weak. I'm looking at everyone else on social media and they seem to have these perfect lives and they're doing everything perfectly and they're making beautiful memories for themselves or their children or their spouses. And you do this comparison. And then you wonder why you go to sleep at night feeling so depleted and wondering why you feel so less than, or, that your tank is so empty. We have to pay attention to the content that we also digest in our lives and that energy that we surround ourselves with, because the internet, social media, all of that is still an energy exchange for us. And so paying attention to also how we are intentional about how we set up our lives and with whom, that is going to be a large part of the village. And when I was a nanny, it was my first kind of glimpse at what it takes to make a family go. And the common denominator was that everyone needed some sort of help. And the dynamics of the families were different, the personalities were different, and it continued to spike that curiosity of people for me. And so that's kind of what led to my work and personal growth. Is I've always been curious about how people, what makes them tick, how we are different, how we are similar. But the window into the world of a family certainly taught me probably the foundational lessons of this village building that I ultimately ended up doing.
I'm curious if you have any kind of a story you can share with us from that time period. I mean, that sticks out for you. That was, yeah, yeah,
Sure. Oh God, where to
mhm.
start? So many. I have so many stories. One story that always I think sticks out for me because it really tested me in terms of understanding my role as the nanny versus the parent. I was someone in these children's lives that obviously loved them, wanted to protect them, be there for them, but I also was very aware that I was not their parent, and that was a fine line to straddle. There was one particular night, a young girl, she was in grammar school at the time, middle school at the time, and she was upstairs a little too long, and I was finishing the dishes, and I went upstairs and I heard her outside the bathroom door, and she was sick, and I thought, oh my gosh, maybe she has a bug or something like that. So she let me come in the bathroom after I knocked, and she was crying, saying, I'm not good enough. And she was really being hard on herself about her grades, things like that. And she was such a good student, better than I ever was. I mean, I tried to do homework with her, and I was like, I don't know what. That was back when the answers were in the back of the book. Thank God, because there's no internet for me to go and look something up. I had no clue. I mean, so I was not the nanny you were hiring to help your children get into honors, anything. It was not me. So, I laid on the floor with her in the bathroom, and she started talking to me about how she felt and the pressure she was feeling from school, from her parents. And I knew I needed to address this with her parents, but I also knew I needed to keep her trust. And so I did end up speaking to her parents and saying, you know what? I'm noticing this going on with your daughter, and I want to figure this out together. What can we do to figure this out for her? I want you to be aware, but I didn't want to attack them. I didn't want to criticize them. I wanted to come from a place of love and understanding and compassion, and also know that she could continue to open up to me. And so I did handle that situation. I hope, fingers crossed, in a way that did give them a runway to go and fixing that, and things did improve. But I will tell you, the end of that story was years later. She was getting married, this girl that I nannied for, and I was at her wedding, and I saw her from across the room, and we went toward each other like a movie. It was, like the slow motion. We hugged each other, and I hadn't seen her in so long. She lived on the East Coast, and and I'm in the Midwest. So we hugged, and as I pulled back from her, she had tears in her eyes, and I looked at her, I said, don't cry. I said, you're gonna make me cry. And she said, no, I just have to tell you, you're still the voice in my head all these years later. And I mean, just sob. And now here, very full circle, just a few months ago, she came to Chicago, and I became the godmother of her son. And so, it has continued. That relationship has continued, and I take it very seriously to remain in contact with these kids who are now adults. But that story, I like to tell it, not because it's like, oh, a pat on the back for me. It was a very challenging situation that I had to learn how you can see another person's perspective, and how instead of going in and attacking, you have to understand what the goal is of what you want to come out of this conversation. And the goal for me was help her. And that's what that I'm sure, is what the parents wanted as well. So it started me really thinking about my role in a village, and also communication, which is a big piece of this village building too. So that's probably one of my favorite full circle stories.
I love that story. Thank you. And that we're going to take a little station break, but that story to me is perfect and opens up all the doors to us really diving into how to build a village, what is in the village. And I'm like you, I hang on to things, or I have had these experiences also. Like I'm just going to share this, and then we'll take a little break. When you go through school and you have teachers that stand out to you, mm-hmm. right? And I can look back on my childhood, and there were teachers that stood out. And one of them was Mrs. Swenson. And if you're still out there, Mrs. Swenson, thank you so much. But, just a little, like she had us sing. I did this on the radio a while back. Every morning when we came in, we had to sing, good morning to you, good morning to you, that song. And I remember, because I'd come in and I'd be like kind of grumpy, and I love music. So she was on to me. And so we'd have to sing that song, and I'd be like, and then by the time the song's over, I was smiling. And that song is still with me. And so that's, she's part of my village. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I love how it sticks. It's a sticky memory.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, this is Loretta Brown, my wonderful guest today, Florence Ann Romano, author of Build Your Village. You can just go get it now during the break. We're going to take a little station break, and don't go away. When we get back, we'll get deeper into how do we get our village? What's our village made of, and so forth. And so we'll be right back.
All right, all clear.
Thank you, Benny.
Love this, Florence.
Thank you. I'm loving it too. It's such an easy exchange.
Yeah.
Thank you for making it so comfortable.
Yeah, thank you. But to me, this is also very pertinent to what's going on in the world right now. We'll pull that out probably in the.
It's time that you are heard. And I don't mean in just a conversation. I mean really heard. Imagine hosting your very own radio program on Alternative Talk 1150. Talk about being heard. Call 425-653-1150 right now to learn how affordable it can be to host your own radio show. Time slots are going fast, so take hold of this chance by dialing 425-653-1150. Alternative Talk. We have an opportunity waiting just for you.
I'm almost 40, so yeah.
Did you know that Reiki healing can be done at a distance? It's true. So let Reiki Oasis focus powerful energy to help relieve your stress, grief, sadness, anger, and so much more. Convenient, personalized treatments at a distance can increase lightness of being. During your appointment, find a quiet place to lie down or sit to receive healing energies. If you want help with your dis-ease, visit ReikiOasis.com. Harness life's energy. Visit ReikiOasis.com today.
Do you know a veteran in need? Nation's Finest, through the VA's Supportive Services for Veteran Families program, helps veterans and their families struggling with rent, employment, and other housing-related costs. Today, Nation's Finest operates more than 30 locations in California, Arizona, and Nevada, helping thousands of veterans every year. Visit nationsfinest.org or call 1.
So I could buy a baby doll, and then I'd come home.
Y'all ready to come back in?
Oh yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Here we go.
No, we're good. We're good.
Multi-dimensional even. Alternative Talk 1150.
I'm going to do a terrific show today because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Woohoo! Thank you, Betty. That was so perfect. That was perfect. Always. Yeah, welcome back to the original Loretta Brown Show. My guest today, Florence Ann Romano, author of Build Your Village. And a reminder that these shows are archived and you can download them for free at the archives for KKNW 1150 AM, the original Loretta Brown Show. And of course, we're everywhere. We're on iTunes, Podcast One, Spotify, X, Megaphone, YouTube. I'm sure I've left something out, but you get the idea. Please go back and find this show as well as a whole bunch of other shows. We are talking about building a village. And I want to just ask you, Florence, how do we build a village?
The $1 million question, right? I always joke and tell people that everyone says, where is this village? Especially mothers. They're like, is there a number to call? Or
yes,
just show up at your front door with a casserole ready to help you raise your kids? Or, and that's what really gave me pause was, well, maybe we do need to write some directions to this village. And so to me, the directions to the village, I needed it to be tangible. I needed it to be something that people like me who are visual learners could relate to. So I created 6 archetypes of villagers in the book that you identify with. But here's the caveat to that. This work that I'm asking you to do, certainly you're trying to find your people for your village, but I'm also asking you to figure out who you are in other people's villages, because this is a reciprocal energy exchange. I need people to understand that it can't just be about me, gimme. So, and that's the way you build a village, is by understanding that you have to explore and be conscious of other people in this work as well. So my villagers in the book, the archetypes that I talk about are, and I'm going to say this fast for a reason, and I'll explain why. Accepting, dependable, cheerleader, communicator, organizer, and healer. And I say them fast for a reason, because I was looking at your face, Loretta, and I could already tell that as I was saying those villagers, you were already starting to cast people probably in your mind, in your life, who you think, just from context clues, fit in. And that's exactly what I want you to do. I want you to start looking at the, like, kind of the ecosystem of your life, as I say, and you're going to cast it like a movie or a play. These are your main characters. And then you're going to step back and you're going to think, okay, so I've done that. Now I see that I'm missing the accepting villager. I'm missing the dependable villager. And you're going to ask yourself, is that what's missing in my life right now? Is that where the void is in my life right now? Or have I done this exercise and realized I think I have all the people I need, but I'm not sure if they're sitting in the right seats. And maybe that's why my friendships aren't working for me. Maybe my dependable villager that I have really isn't, and I'm not setting them up for success. Or perhaps you need to fire some people from your village. Maybe those relationships aren't working anymore. That's the way it is. You could do it nicely, but maybe you need to fire these people. Maybe
or not. No.
Or not, right? Or maybe sometimes it's going to take an intense conversation, or you're going to burn the village down. I don't know. There are many possibilities. But those are examples of the exercises I'm talking about in my book. And at the end of each chapter, I have what I call gut checks and action steps. The gut checks are, what did I learn here? And the action steps are, what can I do today? Not tomorrow, not 10 years from now, because I hate those self-help book, personal growth books where you're like, I'm never going to do this. This is way too hard. This is too much of a heavy lift for me. I want it to be something you can pick up and do and take a step today to take a step toward where you want to be. So those are a few examples of what that village building looks like in terms of exercises.
I love that. I'm thinking when you're talking that you're absolutely right. There we have vacancies in our villages, and some of that might be that we're so busy that we've never actually sat down and thought about this idea of who's in my village. And also, I like what you said, who am I in somebody else's village? Right. And a lot of people come to me and they're needy, or they're lonely, or they're overworked, or they're lacking some sort of connection or some sort of meaning. Like their well is dry. Let's put it that way. Right. Yeah. And the idea that perhaps you need to bring somebody else in. Maybe you need to adjust a relationship. Maybe you're spending too much time with something scratchy, or maybe your expectation of who that person is in the village needs to be adjusted.
That's important reflection. Yeah. I mean, this is not always easy for people to do, because sometimes you have that aha moment where you're like, man, I guess I'm more alone than I thought, or lonelier than I thought, or I'm not making the right decisions with my friendships, or I'm allowing things in these friendships that don't align with my values. Or maybe I've outgrown some of these relationships, or maybe I'm the only one that's putting in the effort. And if I don't put in the effort, is that relationship going to stick? And so these are some of the tests. These are some of the questions you need to ask yourself. Now, I'm not saying fire everyone from your village that doesn't think the same way you do or look the same way you do. That's not the point of this. We're looking for that diversity. But again, your value alignment is usually the way you're going to lead. Now, maybe you have relationships, for example, and I have them in my life, where I never, in the 25, 30 years of friendship I've had with them, have never spoken about politics one time. And I know that we're on opposite sides of things, but we've never discussed it. But that relationship, the way it is, works for us, and we just don't go there. It's just not part of our friendship. But that's not the right choice for everyone. Some people say, you know what, that's too important for me. Religion, politics, or something like that, where that has to be aligned in order for me to respect that person or have a friendship. So, I'm giving a lot of different examples. I feel like it's drinking from a water hose, fire hose probably for people here, but I'm just trying to paint the picture for you of the questions you should be asking yourself, because those questions are going to lead you to the reflection that's probably going to lead you to the answer regarding whatever doesn't feel great right now about your friendships, or whatever is missing, or whatever needs to be recast. But it's about allowing yourself the chance to ask these questions.
Wow, that is so in alignment with the astrology. I was talking earlier about all these 0 point Aries, but it's this reevaluation of what is valuable to me, what matters to me, and what's driving my passion or my ideals, right? And is this the hill you want to die on? And I, like you, I have a lot of diverse people in my life. I enjoy a variety of people, and I like people who make me stretch my thinking. I actually do. Like, wow, let me talk about that, right? So for me in my village, I have space for that sort of a thing. And I agree with you. There are a lot of friends I have that I'm just like, oh, we just don't talk about that because what's to talk about? We've got a lot of other things that we can talk about. So in your book, on page 12, I'm going to read from your book.
I like you quoting me.
I know. Who knew? Right. And you have this lovely exercise, and it says evaluating your values, and it's in the chapter, The Importance of Your Village. And you say, ask yourself the following 3 questions. What does your ideal community look like? Right? Why does your ideal community look this way? And how do your values influence this village? And then I'll do the 3rd question. I love these questions already because they're introspective. Like they're making us stop a minute and take a breath and go, wait a minute, like, who am I? What am I all about? And am I lying to myself about myself? Anyway, the 3rd question, how do you deal with someone whose values conflict with yours?
Right.
So I'm just going to have you expand on that a little bit, right?
Well, like you had mentioned before, sometimes you just don't bring up certain subjects because there's other things to talk about. But this is where you kind of have to have your aha moment, is if someone's values do conflict with yours in a way that is affecting your mental health or your emotional health or your life or your children, then that's a reason maybe to make a change. And we saw a lot of that happen, especially during COVID. Oh my gosh, the vaccine conversation. I saw so many friendships burn down because of that. And a lot of those friendships really never recovered. Again, that was a value that, and like you were just talking about, is this the hill you want to die on? Well, some people did choose to die on that hill, and then that makes you wonder regrets about that decision making at the time. Is there forgiveness that's capable from a time that was so deeply emotional for people and scary, and we're all kind of just trying to do our best during that time, and that's a larger question, I would say, that also is related to this values conversation. That forgiveness topic seems to come up a lot, and people ask me a lot if friendships can be repaired, and I always say that whatever water there is under that bridge, maybe sometimes there's too much water for it to be repaired. But it's also going to take 2 to tango. And you also have to be willing to understand that it may take more than one attempt to reconcile or repair a friendship. But before you even do that, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you miss or are looking for from that relationship? And what are you also able to admit? And take accountability for. So again, these are uncomfortable things, but if that relationship is important to you, then you're going to find a way to have that relationship. It's sometimes as simple as that, even though it feels complicated maybe when exploring it, but simply ask yourself, do you want that relationship?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what you were saying, that when you're evaluating what is your village, because your book is Build Your Village, right? You get to evaluate and really take a look at yourself and your life and see if you're actually in alignment with things, or if you're just willy-nilly, and there are, like you said earlier too, and I did too, there are people that have influenced us, or we have influenced their lives, and we are almost an eternal part of their village at some level. And then also because we're all coming back out of our houses, we're coming back out. And I do encourage, I'm just going to continue to encourage people to come out. And what is your village now? What is the village that you are building? What is the village you need? And how can you contribute to someone else's village?
And you're allowed to change. I mean, right? We're becoming who we're becoming, as they say. I love that saying. And sometimes you outgrow these relationships, and sometimes there are circumstances outside of your control that change your relationships. It could be a divorce. It could be a death. It could be moving to an entirely new city and not knowing a soul. So there's a rebuilding of village that happens, again, like I said, out of your control sometimes. And sometimes it is burning it down yourself, or it burns down and you have no control over that. But it's okay to honor the relationships you have had and say it served me for a time, and say it no longer serves me now. And you can do these things with grace, and you can do these things with respect. It doesn't have to be a blow up. It doesn't have to be an exchange of words that you're going to regret. So again, I always say that you can say what you mean and not say it mean.
That's a great comment. Yeah. You can say what you mean, but not say it mean. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Wow. Lots of self work there in that comment. Yeah. Lots
Takes
of self
restraint. Takes restraint. It does. Now, listen, I'm not a perfect person. I sometimes I'll say the things that I'll say out loud in an interview or something like that, like this, and I'll be like, man, I did a really bad job of that yesterday. So I have to take my own advice sometimes too. I mean, even with dating, can I say to talk, those of you out there that are single, I am as well. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I would love to do all that one day. And I'm getting kind of older here, so I better hop to it. But I do laugh because people are like, well, are you putting yourself out there? Are you trying? Or you're this or that? I literally wrote a book about connection, and I don't even want to take my own advice about going out there and meeting people sometimes, because I'm like, oh, it's exhausting, and the people are crazy, and I don't want to deal with it. So, so I'm not going to sit here, feel holier than thou and think that I've A+ across the board doing all of this stuff. I struggle with it just as much as you guys do. So I just don't want you to make the same mistakes over and over again that I have. That's the truth.
I love what you just said. I love that, because it's real. It's real. Like this stuff is real. It's absolutely real.
And this is never going to change for you. This is going to be a constant exercise for you your whole life, this village concept. So, understanding that it's going to grow with you, evolve with you, change with you, but you can always come back to, and I hope if it speaks to you, I hope you come back to my book as evergreen in nature, where you could say, this can anchor me. No matter what happens in my life, when I feel out of control and not connected, I can go back and do this stuff to reconnect, to find what I'm looking for, to fill that void. I think that's the important part of this, is knowing that it's a place that can be a true north.
Do you have an example of when your village came in and helped you in a very meaningful way, or an important way?
A lot of examples, but one specifically, I had lived in the city proper, Chicago. I live in the suburbs now, but I had lived in the city for 13 years. And like I had just mentioned, I'm not married, no kids, but my friends all went off and did that. They were in a different chapter of their book than I was, but I realized that I was really missing out on what I felt was being a part of that life with them. And I felt kind of alone and isolated in the city. And so it was actually in 2021 that I decided to move back to my hometown, which is where I live now. And even though I grew up here, re-entering that was hard. And so it took me reaching out to friends of mine from childhood and saying, I really could use some help meeting some new people again, and kind of opening up opportunities for connection. And I hated having to do that, honestly, because I'm a very social person, and I never thought that I was going to need help doing that, especially going back to my hometown. So that was a time that I had to put this into practice. And I now am very happy to report that I have so many different friendships here now that I never would have had if it wasn't for asking my one specific friend, Brianna, if she would introduce me to people. And that has changed my life in so many ways, has opened up so many different doors. And I keep thinking, gosh, if I never done that, if I never called Bree, my life would look so different today. So I did exactly what I'm asking you guys to do. I would never ask you to do anything I wouldn't do myself. That was a time that was very difficult for me to admit, was lonely, was isolating. And I had to kind of put my pride aside and say, make that phone call and tell Bree how you're really feeling.
Wow. That's a great story. And it goes back to ask for help. A lot of people don't ask for help. And you're right. We all have this idea that we're superheroes or something, or that we can do it, or there's some sort of weakness. There's something wrong with us if we actually say that. But, you know, my experience is that a lot of people out there want to help.
Yes.
And they just aren't, you don't give them the opportunity. They don't have the opportunity, or they don't know what you need. Right.
Well, that's also another part of it too, is getting comfortable with asking for what you need. That's also not easy to do, just as hard as it is to ask for the help, to also identify what it is that you need. My younger sister, she's 10 and a half years younger than I am actually, but she got married and has a baby. And I help her a lot with my nephew. But I said to her just the other day, she's just, I'm so tired, I'm this, I'm that. And I said, you need to be okay with calling me or calling mom or my other sister and saying, I really could use you today from this time to this time so I can do X or whatever it is. And I said to her, if we can't do it, we will tell you. But you can't decide for us already that we don't want to help or can't help. And so it's, it's hard. It's very difficult for people. And I also want to add on to that. What makes it even harder for people to ask for help is the outstanding debt that people think they have then to that person.
Yeah.
And they don't know when they're going to be able to repay that. And it's this tit for tat thing. And that's a really awful way of existing in a relationship, when you think someone's keeping score. Yeah.
Boy, that is the truth. That is absolutely the truth. I've heard that from a lot of people. Yeah. Yeah. Or they feel like they're out of balance with that one somehow.
Right.
I got a question for you, because you worked a lot with kids, and one of the things we're sort of alluding to today is the stress, the high level of stress of parenting, right? Let alone being just us people out there, right? The stress. Can you talk about the trickle-down effect of stress with children and give some kind of advice around that?
Well, the Surgeon General came out with it, actually, that parents are facing this overwhelm, and the Surgeon General issued an advisory. And I laughed when I read that, because I said, parents in their mind probably were like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. Like, you needed the Surgeon General to tell you that overwhelm was a problem in your life. But beyond the parent or even just an adult feeling that overwhelm, children, yes, the trickle down effect. And I we're going to use children as the example, but I also want people who don't have children to understand how this permeates your relationships and life in general. That overwhelm does spill over, but with children specifically, they are looking to you in so many different ways as examples. And when you are experiencing that overwhelm, of course, it's going to spill onto your child or your children. And it can come out as you losing your temper with them, you being impatient, you saying things you regret. And you also have to remember that, especially with women who are going through postpartum and dealing with all that comes in terms of the brain chemistry, then, and the hormones, that your reactions and your actions are not perhaps what would be normal for you in your life, because you're dealing with so many competing factors chemically. And so this overwhelm has a very large umbrella. But for children specifically, we need to teach kids that it's okay to say no, and that no is a complete sentence. And it starts with the parents too, where maybe you're doing too much and you're, schlepping these kids all over the place, and you need a night off where you're not going to do sports that night. Or you're going to order in food and you're not going to worry about cooking that dinner because it's causing you so much stress even figuring that out. Whatever it might be, you're able to promote this self-care and this emotional awareness to your children about what happens when I feel this way, and also how do I cope with it. And also knowing that you can take a breath and step back when you're feeling that bubble up inside of you. Even as a parent, you could say, I want to walk away for just a second, because I don't want to say something to you that I'm going to regret. Because again, we're trying to teach our children as they get older, and they're going to have to deal with situations and unfairness in life, that there are right and wrong ways to deal with something. You want them to understand that an emotion is never wrong, but your reaction can be. And that's where I think overwhelm is really the thread that kind of runs through.
Yeah. Well, Florence Ann Romano, it has been a delight to have you on the show. Build Your Village. And where do they find you?
You could go to florenceann.com, or you could follow me on social media. I like to think of myself as your virtual village. I answer every DM. Please feel free to reach out to me. You're not alone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Benny Mathers. You are definitely part of my village. And to all the listeners, you're my village too. And everybody have a great, great week. Be careful out there. Drink lots of water. That's all I have to say. Lots of fire in the sky. Florence Ann Romano, thank you so much.